So what's up, guys? It's Jack from Santon Squad. Today we've got like quite a cool duel video for you. What the two decks that we're using. So it's like me on the left and I'm playing with Inzektors, and George is on the right and he's playing with Sylvans. This is basically all come from the Creator Poll project which Konami is doing. This is like the first sort of like pair up with like the Inzektors and the Sylvans, where we've actually had sort of like a rivalry within our group, because I really want the Inzektor card, George really wants a Sylvan card, so we just decided to throw together a Sylvan deck and an Inzektor deck, and just like play some games with it just for the fun of it. Like neither of these decks are like perfect as far as these decks go. We literally like built these decks last night. It was sort of like a last minute idea sort of thing. So they're not going to be like the most revised builds, because I personally didn't put in like any revision for the build that I am playing, and then I'm not sure George did either. So these are just going to be very sort of like thrown together lists. George won the die roll here, so he gets to choose to go first. So he's led with I'm not even sure what this spell card is called. He used it and he just gets to search for any plant monster that's got 2,400 attack or more, and then it's got a grave effect where you can banish it from the graveyard to summon a plant monster at hand, but you can't use both effects in the same turn. And then he searched Sage Koya, and then he gets to follow with Sylvan Charity, and then he puts Princess Sprite and Spore to the top of his deck. George then activates a copy of Terraforming. This is going to let me add Mount Sylvania to your hand. So like Mount Sylvania is like a weird card, because it's one of the cards like a lot of archetypes have a card like this where it's not really like ideal, like, and it's not like great in the way that it works, but it's actually like necessary to the deck being able to perform certain plays and combos. And then after searching the Sylvania, it just summons an Evil Thorn. What this card does is it just tributes itself. You inflict a minor amount of burn damage, and then you get to summon up to 2 Evil Thorns out of your deck. This is really cool because this allows it to like be a 1-card Jasmine. Jasmine is a pretty powerful link monster. It sort of it feels kind of like the plant version of something like LP or Isolde, where it just summons a plant out the deck at the but it's got its own stipulation where this one has to like tribute a monster that it points to. So to be able to like extend, George uses Foolish Burial to send a monster from the depths of the grave. I think he's going to choose the Rose Lover. Yeah, so what Rose Lover does is you can banish her from the grave to be able to summon a plant monster at your hand, and then that monster is unaffected by the effects of trap cards, which isn't like relevant on this turn, but like it's just like a way to be able to get something to Jasmine's link point. I think he's going to summon the Sage Koya with this. Yeah, so Sage Koya comes out, he activates Sylvania, discards the Carrot Champion. That's a very cool card. What it says is that when it's in the grave, you can send a plant monster from your hand or face-up field to the grave to be able to special summon it from the graveyard. So it's sort of like just a free sort of like resource. It's sort of almost like a plant jet synchron, but obviously it's not a tuner monster. So then he gets to sack any Sylvan card to the top of his deck. I think, yeah, so Cherub Sprout. So what Cherub Sprout says is that when it's excavated at the top of the deck and sent to the grave, you get to special summon any level 1 plant monster from your deck. So that's going to be able to like get him into all like the cool stuff like Spore, Rest in Peace Glow Bulb. That was like one of the best targets for it. But I think he's either going to go for Spore or he's going to go for Copy Plant. Yeah, so he's gone for the Copy Plant. So what's pretty cool about like the Sylvan deck is that it naturally just like runs tuner monsters anyway, because like a lot of the good plant support cards are just tuners like anyway. Like there was it sort of like comes from the old plant synchro decks that used to be about, where you just play like Lone Fire, Bulb, Spore, and then you'd use that along with cards like Tengu and stuff to just be able to keep making cool synchro monsters, like synchro plays. So George distributed the Sage Koya to go into his 3 Lone Fires out the deck. And then he's going to summon, I think it's something like a Hermitry, I imagine, or something, yeah. So Hermitry is quite cool. So what it says is that you can excavate the top card of your deck. If it's a plant monster, send it to the grave and draw a card. So it's like a 3+. And then obviously if you hit like a Sylvan, it's going to trigger any excavated effect. He's got unlinked the Jasmine into Link Cross. The Copy Plant is a tuner, by the way, so he's going to be able to do some cool stuff with that. So he's going to summon his 2 tokens when he finds out where he's put them. And then from here, I think he's going to go through like a typical sort of Formula Synchron Metal Marcher play, because he can just summon the Spore from the Halky Fibrax. And what's pretty like cool about Spore in a deck with a, like, for instance, Hermitry, which is a level 8 plant, you can actually just make a True King of all Calamities using Spore as a level 9 monster. So that's like just obviously a pretty powerful card that you can just rely on when trying to play like a rogue deck like this. So he's drawn a card off his formula, and then he gets to make the Metal Marcher. I'm not sure it's relevant what he revives. I know George does play Auroradon just for the tokens, so it might be relevant that he gets formula back. But we'll just see what he grabs. Yeah, so he just grabs Copy Plant. I imagine this is just going to be his material for the for the Halky Fibrax. So he just gets to summon Spore. Obviously, like both of these decks have like crippling weaknesses to just like basically any hand trap. So like when these decks were like sort of like good in the game, especially like Inzektors, you've got to bear in mind that the only 2 hand traps that like existed were Effect Veiler and Maxi in sort of like a generic sort of sense. Obviously DD Crow did as well. DD Crow did see some play in the Inzektor format because it was pretty good against the Winderpan Loop as well. But like these decks just were not designed to be able to play through things like Nibiru or anything like that. So we both just made an agreement where we just don't play sort of like modern hand traps. So he's going to summon the Spore off the Hulk. So it looks like he's going to go for that the Calamities play. Yeah, so he's going to synchro into his level 9 Crocodragon, which is pretty cool because he just gets to draw a free card. Because like this deck as well, like the Sylvan deck, something that we was talking about when like we were trying to like build the decks, is that this deck is literally has like no like comeback play whatsoever. So George activates the effects of the Carrot Champion by sending a Sylvan Peacekeeper from his hand to his grave. So it's just like a free extender, and then he triggers the effects of Sage Queer. I do believe Sage Queer's effect to summon from the hand is like a hard once per turn. I couldn't actually read this copy because it was German, but what I realised that like George mentioned that he summoned the first Sage Queer off the effect of the Rose Lover anyway, so like he hadn't triggered it yet that turn. So yeah, George has just gone back to thinking about what he wants to like build here. Like this is like one of the problems with this match is like when we were playing it, we were both sort of like just missing stuff from the extra that we felt should be there. But it's literally just because we sort of like I said, we just threw these decks together and just sort of like played what we had, played with what we had access to. So he was mentioning that he wants to play a level 7 synchro. I'm not really sure which synchro he could play exactly. It seems pretty good that you can like make the Riser Dragon, and then maybe like set up something in the grave to be able to like extend, but or to be able to like trigger on the opponent's turn. But I'm not really sure what sort of like plant cards you could actually like abuse off that. But I'm pretty sure George throws the Metal Marcher, the Carrot Champion, the Hulk, and the Sage Queer just into a 4 material Appaloosa. Yeah, so George just throws these 4 spare monsters into a 4 material Appaloosa. And then I think he's just going to revive the Spore by banishing Hermitry. That makes Spore a level 9 monster, and they can just overlay the Crocodragon and the Spore with into True King of all Calamities. Obviously, it's sort of like counterproductive almost to be able to like to just make an Appaloosa and then a Calamities because your opponent can't really activate any monster effects anyway. But this like, literally all came from just like not having a better option. And I think that's going to be like the sort of extension of George's turn. So I draw for turn. Obviously, like George knows like sort of what I've got in my deck and how I've built it. I've like packed this deck with like dangers and draw cards, so it's going to be like just pretty devastating for him to just call dark monsters. Like it's just going to affect every card in my deck. And there's only like basically one card in my deck that I can actually like draw into. That's going to keep this calamities at bay, and that card is Phantom Knight's Fogblade, because I just decided to include the sort of like rusty package. I think it's quite cool that like if you like summon your Inzektors and they get stopped and stuff, and then like you can throw out enough dangers, then you can just get to the rusty thing, and hopefully that will like carry you until the next turn at least. So I drew 2 cards off the Allure of Darkness, just thinking about what I want to banish. And I banished the Inzektor Centipede. So Centipede's like a weird card because like back in sort of like Inzektor's like prime, it didn't like really matter too much whether you had like Centipede or Dragonfly. Obviously like Dragonfly is always like the better one, but like the impact of like a Centipede was actually just like enough back then. But like now, if you just summon a Centipede, like if you can't like find some like crazy extenders where you like make say like a Cherubini or something to mill the Dragonfly to reborn it, you can't really like do a fat lot in that turn unless like you just like relying on the dangers to be able to like get into like the rusty play, which I mentioned. So I don't feel bad about banishing the Centipede at all. What I do feel bad about is that when I activated this Pot of Desires, I actually banished the remaining 2 Centipedes from my deck. So the only Inzektors in my deck now are just Dragonflies, Hornets, and Gigamantis. But that doesn't really matter in this sort of like board state where he's got Calamities and Appaloosa, because at the minute I've just got to try and find a way to even try and play. And I do believe I did find a Fogblade off the Allure of Darkness, or it was the Desires, I'm not sure which. But yeah, so like this is like one of the problems as well, is that like George has like completely stumped my turn. I wasn't able to do anything because of the Calamities. So like if this was like any other meta deck right now, you would be able to put game on the board no matter what. And then the only thing that George was like able to do was to just summon this Carrot Weight guy. And as much as that is game on the board, it doesn't like force me to do anything. Like literally I can just hold this Fogblade until the Calamities and like survive. So like say for instance if this was like a different deck, you might be able to like put like multiple monsters out. You might be able to like force a back row with like a Phoenix or something, and then you can like it just changes things because it gives you an actual like option to sort of like clear this board and then just win anyway. So it looks like George has discarded the Darlington Cobra through the effect of Mount Sylvania, I think. Did he? And then he's just going to revive the Carrot Weight champion. So like this is 32, 19, and then 3k. So like this would be over 8,000 if it was to connect. Fortunately, I drew a Fogblade just to be able to hit this Calamities with. Because I'm playing like so many like danger cards, Appaloosa sort of like weird. Like for instance, like if you reveal a danger in the hand, like they're never going to negate that, so it's always either going to like summon itself and like draw a card, and that's just going to give me like I'm going to be able to see another card to be able to sort of like try and start playing. And like I'm playing 3 copies of Bigfoot and 3 copies of Thunderbird, I think. So it just means as well that like I actually have like a way to sort of just sort of like relax behind those big monsters, especially as well if I can see 2 at the same time, because then that means I can actually out the Appaloosa through forcing her with a Dingirsu. So George has just attacked with the Appaloosa and the Carrot Weight champion, and then for turn I think I drew Inzektor Ladybug. It's not entirely relevant at this point of the game, I don't think, because I believe I've got Hornet in my hand at this point, so like anytime you've got Hornet you just don't really care about Ladybug at all. So I'm just going to summon the Dragonfly. The only reason I've summoned it now is because it's the only card that I didn't want to get discarded off the danger, because Dragonfly is pretty powerful even in the circumstance where I don't have any Centipedes to summon off it, because it still represents an extra monster on the field and 2 destructions just by summoning Hornet out the deck. And so I reveal Thunderbird and actually hit Nessie. Now George realises that he can't negate the Nessie because it would just mean that the Thunderbird can kill it. But at the same time I can just search for Bigfoot, and then no matter what happens here, I can out this Appaloosa, so I'll just reveal the Bigfoot, he's not going to negate it for the same reason as he didn't negate the Thunderbird. And then if Bigfoot hits itself, then I can target the Appaloosa, and then he has to negate it, and then Thunderbird can kill it. And then if Bigfoot doesn't miss, I can summon it, make Dingirsu, and then that forces him to use the effects of Appaloosa. And I believe the Bigfoot does hit the field, and I discard the Hornet. So I got like excellent value from the Bigfoot. So now I think it's just pretty clear. You just make the Ding, and then like in the main phase 2, I can just sort of like destroy the board. So yeah, George is just forced to negate the effect of the Ding, and then I can just retort and kill it. And then in the main phase 2, the Dragonfly is free to do what she wants. My banished top pile at the minute is like pretty ridiculous. Like I've got three centipedes in there. One of them is banished face up because I banished it off a law. So that is relevant because that means I can revive it off a Levier. But I also banish like my other Phantom Knight Fogblade, so that means that like my Rusty is dead. So like my options here were just sort of like a bit crap. Like I didn't really have like much that I could like create like a good board myself, but like at the point of the game that it doesn't really matter because I've completely destroyed George's board and he's like top decking. So even if he was to draw like a playable card, it wouldn't really matter that much because there isn't a one card he can draw in this Sylvan deck where it like removes this board. And then the Centipede is just able to search for a Dragonfly next turn, and then I can just sort of like repeat what I just did with the Hornet. And then the Centipede is just able to search for a Dragonfly next turn, and then I can just sort of like repeat what I just did with the Hornet. So we'll just search another Dragonfly for next turn. Then from here I can just like make something like a Masquerader to be able to like make Unicorn if he was to draw anything decent. I really love Masquerader. I think he's like one of the best like little link monsters going. Like it's one of the only ones that like it's the only like small link monster, so like a Link 2, which actually has like a huge effect on the opponent's turn. Oh, so okay, so I've made Masquerader, and then I just revived the Dragonfly off the World Legacy Succession. I believe I've got Ladybug in the grave as well. Oh yeah. So I get Hornet, and then I just destroy my own Dingirsu to be able to trigger the Dragonfly. That lets me go and get another Hornet. And then we get to make the really cool new rank 3 monster that came out. I think it was in the Battles of Legends set. It's like a rank 3 monster negate, and it actually has like direct synergy with like insect monsters. So it seemed like pretty perfect. So what it says is when your opponent, when a monster effect is activated on the field, you can detach a material to negate it. And then after that, you either like make it gain 500 defense or change its battle position. But it's also got another effect that says that when an insect monster's battle position is changed, you can special summon an insect monster from the grave. So that would have meant that I was just able to revive Dragonfly again, just to keep up the board presence. So start of game 2. So I took game 1 with the Inzektors, and then obviously George gets to choose whether he goes first or second for the game 2. It looks like he chose to send me first. This is sort of like a weird thing because it makes sense to send Inzektors first because that means that they're not going to get any sort of like value off the Hornet and stuff. But like the way that I wanted to like build this deck was just so that even if like my Inzektor plays like didn't go through, then at least I'd be able to like make just like generic sort of like link monsters and stuff. Like I've decided to include the Chaos Space package, for instance. Like the main reason for this is because this is a 1-card Union Carrier, and Union Carrier in Inzektors is like it's amazing. So just open with the Chaos Space. I think I'm just trying to get the draw of Chaos Space at this point. I just want to see what I can get. Um, so we've just searched for the Collapse Serpent off the Wyver Burstar, and then I think I've got a Desires in my hand to use. So I'm probably just going to throw out that Pot of Desires. I think like this, like I think Pot of Desires is just like an auto include in this sort of deck because like everything's back to 3 now. Like there isn't a single like Inzektor card on the ban list. You only like realistically need to see 1 Dragonfly to win the game. You only realistically need to see 1 Hornet to win the game. The only thing that you really like bothered about is that you just don't want to banish too many centipedes like what happened in the first game, but like what happened, like it's not like it's unwinnable if that happens. So I activated Desires and then drew into an Allure, so I'm just going to get to see a lot of cards. And it looks like I drew 2 Allure. So I'm just going to activate Allure. I'm probably just going to banish the Gigamantis just because it's like the most useless one. You only really want to see that card once you've already got everything that you need. Like without Dragonfly, you just don't want to see Gigamantis at all. And I've activated the second Allure and drew 2 more Desires, or like another Desires because I think I opened 2. So in this first turn, I've seen 3 copies of Desires and 2 copies of Allure. So kind of sucks. So I think there I was thinking, do I banish the Thunderbird or do I banish the Collapse Serpent? I think because of the state of my hand with the 2 Desires, I just really wanted to activate the Thunderbird just to see if I could draw into like a more useful card. So I activated the Thunderbird and it hit the Silent Boots, which is like perfectly fine. It's basically just a +1. And I drew the copy of Ladybug. I only actually play 1 Ladybug. I'm not sure whether that's correct. It just seemed right when I was like putting the deck together last night. I did build this deck with the intention of just like blinding second anyway. So obviously you just want to see Hornet, you never really want to see the Ladybug. So I think I'm in sort of like a really sort of poor position here because I think I banished the other Phantom Knight off the copy of it because I only play 1 Silent Boots and 1 Ancient Cloak, and I think I banished the Ancient Cloak off the Desires. So it means that I've got no card to send with Rusty, so like my extra deck options aren't really like amazing at the moment. I can't make Masquerader because the Striker Dragon is clogging up that extra monster zone, and IP Masquerader doesn't allow you to use links for her summon. But I think I think I've got a Fogblade. I think the face name card is a Fogblade, so I figure if Sylvan can play through 2 Fogblades, then the deck is much better than I thought. So I just decided to set 2 and pass. I think I'm just like skating my extra deck at the minute because like I think at this point I was actually convinced that I could do some amazing plays that actually I can't. So I just set 2 and then I think it goes over to George's turn. So he opens with Orifice Scorpio. So like this card is sort of strange because I think I actually get like sort of like PTSD with this card because it used to be so broken when you used to be able to search Brilliant Fusion. So like anytime I sort of like see it now, just deep in my mind I just assume they're trying to search Brilliant Fusion. So like I'll just stop it no matter what. I don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing to just always stop this because it's like it takes away the normal summon. The decks that usually play this card, like the reason why this card usually sucks is because it like the deck like needs its normal summon to sort of like go through. So like I don't feel bad about stopping this effect at all. But then he shows me that he drew the instant fusion anyway, and that's like sort of like the biggest sort of benefit of this card is that you get to search for like fusion cards. So like it doesn't really matter to George too much that I stopped it. And then he's just synchroed into Crocker Dragon to try and draw into a card. I've just sort of like okayed that. The fact that Crocker Dragon is a tuner means that if I was to negate the draw with the other Fogblade, it would just meant that he could go into Archivibrax and then just like do sort of generic ridiculous stuff. Especially in a plant deck where you already like naturally play Spore anyway. I think George tries to stack Lone Fire with Sylvania. That card can only stack Sylvan cards, but like the cost of it, you discard like a plant. So I can see where he got the confusion there. So he's just stacked a Peacekeeper. Is he stacking a Peacekeeper? I think it's going to be Cherub Sprout that he goes for. Yeah, so he stacks a copy of the Cherub Sprout. And then basically what happens now is that if this Sylvania sort of like survives until the end phase of my next turn, he's just going to be able to like excavate that card from the top of his deck. And just get to summon any level 1 plant monster out of his deck. So I was just checking Crocodile stats. I think George got 2 cards in hand. Yeah, so he was on 2,000. So I've taken 1,000 over the Striker Dragon. And then he's used the Crocodile to target my back row. To which I just chain it, which is just another Fog Blade. At this point, I still have those 2 copies of Pot of Desires in my hand, and then I think I have Ladybug, and then the Mothman that I just drew. So George rolls, I discard the Hornet to summon the Mothman, and then just get to draw a card. Mothmans are pretty cool as well, because what we realised is that you can actually use Mothman along with the Inzektor to be able to go into the Inzektor Link monster. Funnily enough, I wasn't actually playing the Inzektor Link monster in these duels, like basically because when I was sort of like just doing test hands and stuff with it last night, I sort of like realised that Union Carrier is just like so much better in like every way. It basically does the same thing but without a cost. You can make Union Carrier with dangers, and you can make them with the Collapse Serpent or the Wyver Burstar. So like I just decided to like throw in more options, because I didn't want to just like lose a game because I didn't play something silly like Nightmare Cerberus, especially when you're playing a like dangers in the deck, because you get extra value from those cards. And then I think I was just came to my deck to see if it was worth activating this second Desires. So like what's pretty cool here is that because George is stacked himself a Cherub Sprout, that card literally does nothing if it was to be in his hand. So if I pop this Mount Sylvania, it just basically means that he's drawing like a dead card. And all those like game isn't on the board necessarily. Is not in a very good place to. In fact, the game is on the board, because if he just sets the Cherub Sprout, then I just pop it again next turn, and then just attack directly with the Mothman and the Thunderbird again. Yeah, so I'll just link these 2 away, and I'm assuming I should go for Nightmare Phoenix, give him to make him draw the bad card. George was actually just like refusing. He was basically saying that I wasn't allowed to Phoenix him without his consent. So I think that's sort of almost like a scoop. I think he sends the Cherub Sprout here to summon the World Champion dude. Unfortunately, that card has got like 1900 attack, so he can't really attack over anything without just double cutting with the Phoenix. And then I drew into a copy of Chaos Space, I think. I'm not sure whether the little Chaos Dragons are banished or not. I'm not sure if the card is live. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, so like, I started this play with them, I think. So I think the Wyver Burster is banished. No, the Wyver Burster is in the grave. It's in the bottom of the grave, you can see it. So I've just summoned Unicorn just to discard the Chaos Space. This was basically just to draw an extra card off the Chaos Space. I think I drew a good one. I think it was Centipede. And I haven't normal summoned yet, so I can just normal summon the Centipede, use its effect to equip the Hornet out the grave, and then equip the Gigamantis that's in my hand to it. And then I can use the Hornet to pop the Gigamantis, and then Centipede triggers twice, and then the Gigamantis triggers to summon one from the grave. So I just summon the Ladybug, and then I get to search for 2. And then I can just make Access Code Talk with the Ladybug and the Unicorn, which is game. Yeah, so that was just our quick game between Inzektors and Sylvans. Like I've been saying, like they weren't too serious. We didn't really put a lot of thought into the decks themselves. But I personally really want Inzektors to win. George really wants Sylvans to win, so please don't let Sylvans win, because I want to be happy. I don't want George to be happy. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. So yeah, so follow for more.